On the behalf of the Superintendent, Aaron Elmhurst, and the members of the Parent Involvement Committee, we want to say a very big thank you to everyone tonight for joining us. We look forward to a great night, and a special thank you especially to Scott Templeton for rejoining us one more time. Thank you very much, Scott. Go ahead, Aaron.
I think we're on the land acknowledgement. You should be able to see it now.
Yes.
Awesome.
I have it too. You're telling them, Aaron, it's your turn.
Yes, it is your turn, Aaron.
Muted.
You're muted.
All right. I'm ready now. The Durham District School Board acknowledges that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships, both historic and modern, with the territories upon which our school board and schools are located. Today, this area is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. We acknowledge that the Durham region forms a part of the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island, the Mississauga peoples, and the treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation. It is on these ancestral and treaty lands that we teach, we learn, and we live. Jimmy Gretsch.
Thank you. The Durham District School Board is committed to learning and working environments that center human rights and equity and are safe, welcoming, respectful, equitable, accessible, inclusive, and free from discrimination. At this time, I would like to welcome all our PIC members, our parent representatives from Ajax, Oshawa, Pickering, North Whitby, and our community representatives, our SEAC representative, our trustee representatives, and our staff representatives. Welcome tonight. All right. Can we look over our agenda, and now we'll have the approval of our agenda. So all in favor, say hi or raise a thumb or raise your hands if you're in favor of the agenda. All right, no nays, so it's all yay. All in favor of the minutes? You've seen the minutes? If you're in favor, then we go ahead. Minutes, can we have someone to approve the agenda and then someone to approve the minutes, please? So first, the agenda. Can we have two people to approve the agenda?
I see Sarah has her hand up and Ted has his hand up and Adriana has her hand up. So I'm assuming they're approving those, the agenda.
The agenda, so we have first and seconded by Sarah and the two first people. And then can we have two people to affirm the minutes?
I see Kavita has her hand up. And we need one more, and Scott, thank you.
Thank you both. I now hand over to you, Ms. Elmhurst.
I think it's me, yes. So thank you so much. We have, as you saw on the agenda, we have a number of presentations today for you to share some information with our Parent Engagement Committee. So right now we're going to welcome the Parents Aware organization to share some of the potential presentations they have available to us and tell us a little bit about what they do. So we're going to welcome Lisa and Marilyn to share some information with us this evening. I think Lisa, you're muted.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for inviting us to be part of this meeting.
So I know my name is showing up as Paul Ritzip. I'm using my husband's computer, but I'm actually Lisa. So Parents Aware is a community organization based in the Durham region, and our aim is to help all parents meet the challenge of raising children and teens in a media-saturated world. Parents Aware is particularly concerned about the social, emotional, and physical health risks associated with children's early and repeated exposure to online pornography. We provide information, tools, and resources to help parents, first, to become aware of these risks, and second, to develop the necessary communication skills to have open conversations with their children and teens about pornography, sex, and intimacy. We want to help parents provide a safe space for their children to be able to talk about the things they are experiencing in everyday life. The end goal is a better, stronger parent-child relationship. We also hope these conversations can help prepare children to make safe media choices. Marilyn Evans is the founder of Parents Aware and hosts a weekly podcast with over 75 episodes. She is an experienced speaker and presenter. Marilyn's going to share some further information with you now, as well as talk about some presentation options for your consideration.
Thank you. I just want to confirm that my sound is coming through well. Okay, and will I be able to screen share at some point? Can I have permissions to take over the screen? I won't do that till
Erin,
a few more minutes down the road.
I can stop sharing now, and then when you're ready, you can go ahead.
Sounds good. Okay, so I'm really grateful to be presenting Parent to Parent tonight, because as parents, we all tend to worry about our children's access to online material, and it really comes down to three main worries, and that's content, contact, and conduct. We worry about our kids finding content online that could be harmful to them and how they might react to that, whether it causes trauma or whether they might act inappropriately. We're worried especially about who might contact them through their different online activities, whether it's school or whether it's gaming. And then, of course, we are also worried about how they will conduct themselves, whether they will make those smart choices and treat others fairly online. And those three C's kind of make up the fear side of the equation. And we react to that fear by doing our very best to put protective measures in place, like filters, parental controls, and maybe some screen limits. Now, the other side of that is a sense that we really don't have a whole lot of control over what our kids experience online. So sometimes we just try to, do our best to muddle through. We kind of close our eyes and hope for the best. Well, our philosophy at Parents Aware is not to point fingers or to place judgment on any particular kind of approach, but rather to appreciate that we're all in this media-saturated world. And we all have the challenge of raising kids here. And we're here to learn how to do it well and to do it together. So no matter where a parent is starting from or what perspective they're bringing to the conversation, our hope is to build awareness surrounding the very real issues that our kids face online. And then to take that awareness and to, within the context of individual family dynamics and individual family core values and communication strategies, to give kids fair warning and a fighting chance to develop their own safer screen habits, their own strategies to thrive, not just, make it by or survive, but to thrive in this media saturated world that they're growing up in. And as Lisa introduced, at our core focus, we bring awareness surrounding the harms of pornography. Now, Parents Aware supports the position that pornography is a public health issue. And I'll talk a little more about that in a bit. But right now, I'd like to bring your attention to what we've been seeing played out in the media recently and in Parliament. So you may be aware that this week, the Ethics Committee of the House of Commons has heard witness testimony from a young woman named Serena Flight and her lawyer, Michael Bowie. This is part of an ongoing investigation into MindGeek. Now, MindGeek is the parent company of Pornhub, along with dozens of other pornographic websites that they own. And their headquarters is in Montreal, Canada. So they're currently under review for the distribution of child sexual abuse materials across their platforms. So on December 16th, 2020, Pornhub removed 10.8 million videos that they could not verify by age or by consent. So the world learned about Serena. She's a 19-year-old woman now, when she allowed her story to go public, as told by Nicholas Kristof, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist in the New York Times. The article was titled "The Children of Pornhub." So to recap just a tiny bit, because I don't have time to go too much into it, Serena was 13 when she was pressured by her boyfriend to send her an intimate video of herself. Now, she had never had a boyfriend before. She's in 7th grade and she had moved to a new school and was feeling quite alone and lost. She then found this boy that was interested in her, and that kind of changed her world for a little while. And then it changed her world a whole lot. So she didn't want to send the video. She had never actually kissed a boy before she had this boyfriend. And but week after week, he pressured her along with his, he was being egged on by his friends, and she finally relented. Well, eventually she received a message through social media, and it was a link to her video on Pornhub. Now, this link didn't come to her from an adult. It came to her from classmates. So others of her peers in 7th, 8th, and 9th grade at her middle school. It didn't take long for the information to circulate through the whole school. She was devastated. As you can imagine, she moved schools. The story went with her. We've heard of this in the past. And I'm telling you this story because it's happening right now. It's happening right now in our parliament. But I'm also telling it to you, not just from the side of Serena, but the impact that it has on all our kids. Everyone thinks this is not my kid, and certainly not every child is going to experience something so traumatic. But the truth is, and we know from experiences in our own schools, that this is something that can happen to anyone. And it is impacting every child that age. Today's pornography is extreme and violent, and it promotes a culture of exploitation. So our kids are either participating in this culture of exploitation, or they're actively taking a stand against it. There's really not a lot of middle ground going on. And as I said, Serena's story isn't isolated. There will be more witnesses coming forward to testify this week. There has been stories come out in Canadian papers of young women going through similar experiences. And it takes me back to several years ago when we heard, the first real story that we heard of this kind was Rehtaeh Parsons, the young woman in Nova Scotia who took her life in 2013, 2 years after a photo of her rape circulated through her school. And I have to ask myself, why is the needle not moving in the direction that we need it to protect our children? What are we still not talking about? We're talking about a lot of things. We're talking about cyber safety, cyberbullying. We're talking about how to provide consent. but what are we not talking about? So we need to bring awareness not simply to the problem, because the problem is devastating, but we need to look at the root causes. What is it about child and adolescent development that makes our young people more vulnerable to sexualized media than perhaps their adult counterparts? Now, ease of accessibility is the #1 reason that children are exposed to pornography. Multiple studies indicate that a child's first exposure is mostly unintentional. The NSPCC, that's in Great Britain, says that children are as likely to see online porn by accident as they are to deliberately search for it. And neuroscientist, or neurosurgeon, I should say, Dr. Dawn Hilton from San Antonio, Texas, explains that the brain responds to pornography in the same way it would to an illicit drug. So frequent and repeated exposure to pornography reshapes the brain and reinforces new neural pathways. The more an individual views pornography, the more the brain will expect and crave more and often more extreme content over time. And I don't have time to go into it in detail tonight, but young people, of course, are especially vulnerable because during adolescence, their brain is in a period of growth and development. It's not the same structure as an adult brain. So their reward center, that's the part of the brain responsible for flight and pleasure, or sorry, reactions to pleasure or fight and flight, but it's in overdrive while the executive functioning part of the brain is still being developed. So that's the part of the brain responsible for thinking and reasoning. So add in a child and adolescent's natural and normal curiosity for sexual information, and it is extremely difficult for young people to put on the brakes when they see sexualized content. So that's just a brief overview of why we are so concerned about young people's exposure to pornography. And I'm just going to share with you 4 presentations that we have available. Now, I've structured them to present to you what could be done, but know that anything is, really they're adaptable. They can be adapted to whatever is most needed to a particular situation or age group. Okay. So I'm just going to, let's start at the beginning. All right, so the first presentation is Get Off the Fence, talking to children and teens about pornography or really any tricky topic. And this really is the foundation of Parents Aware, because I know that as a parent, part of the reason I developed Parents Aware was because it was such a challenge for me to move from a place of not knowing what to say to my kids to feeling really comfortable and confident in having these conversations. And when I started to have these conversations, I saw something really unique happen, or really exciting happen, and was that our relationship has actually grew stronger because of it. Kids want to have this information. So in this presentation, we talk about what the fence is, what keeps us stuck, and the difference between protecting our kids from dangerous content versus preparing them for the online world that they have to interact in. And as I said, we talk about why we get stuck on the fence, kind of those big hurdles that we have to get over, those feelings that have been kind of ingrained in us, or the ideas of why we don't want to have this conversation. And we talk about how curiosity is really natural and how it drives learning in children, and that children are just naturally going to be internet explorers. But we go back and talk about those in more detail, those vulnerabilities of the adolescent brain and how we can build resiliency through open communication and really prepare kids to make safe decisions based on their own personal choices and not be influenced by peers so heavily. So the next presentation is really centered on helping families build safer screen habits. So again, coaching kids to make safe media decisions based on their personal viewpoints, their personal values, and their own identity. So really being able to speak up for themselves. And we want to rethink our idea of how we set those safeguards in place. And those safeguards are important, but we have to do that with our kids rather than for our kids. And it's about coaching kids to put their priorities first, to really vocalize those priorities and then set boundaries around other ways that they use their screens so that those priorities always come first. And we do that by connecting them to their core values. And those can be family values and individual values. And again, it always comes back to ongoing conversations. These are not one and done solutions. It's about changing a mindset of how we approach the topic. And then our next presentation is really just about parenting in this media saturated world and what kids need their parents to know. So they need fair warning of online dangers. They, need you to know that when it comes to social media, that even though they really, really want it and they seem super mature, they really can wait a little bit longer until their brain kind of catches up to what their wants are. And they want you to know, that they're tech ninjas and that whatever filters and parental controls and screen limits that we put in place, if there's a will, there's a way for them to get around it. And they need you to know that they're not going to bring up the tricky topics on their own. They're not just going to come to parents and say, I'm really struggling with this. I'm really struggling with pornography if they've never heard parents use that language in the home. So we really have to start using the language around these tricky topics. And then our kids will feel that they have a safe place to talk to us about things that are so important to their day-to-day routines. And most of all, they need to know that they are loved, seen, and heard, no matter what. And then this last presentation is really geared more to younger children. So how do we have this conversation before our kids hit the junior grades of elementary school? So right from the very beginning, as early as 3 years old, we can start to have safeguarding and online protection conversations. So we need to understand what the threat is and that stranger danger is a misnomer, and that really children are most often harmed by people that they know and trust in some form or another. So we can start these protective conversations really early, by using correct names for body parts, distinguishing between public versus private. And we can teach our kids to understand early warning signs, to understand how that reward system works in the brain to their advantage, how when they feel that fight, flight, faint, or freeze response, that it could signal danger, and that we can equip them with safety questions that they should ask in every situation. So really give them something to draw upon, and of course, give them a team of 5 grown-up safety people that they can go to. So that is what we have available, and we would be thrilled to be able to present that to a group of parents, whether it's elementary school or primary grades or junior intermediate, parents of those age groups. We really just want to spread awareness. And as Lisa said at the beginning, it's not just about warning kids about the harms of pornography. Yes, we are focused on pornography, but it's really about strengthening our relationships with our kids so that whatever conversation we need to have with them, we've created a safe place to do that with. And we're just really about building strong relationships. I'm trying to stop share.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much for sharing. Lisa, did you have anything you wanted to add, or?
Specifically, I mean, I think our goal is to build awareness and just raise awareness about Parents Aware, and then have opportunities to share the resources that we have with other parents to help them be able to navigate these difficult conversations with their children.
Great, thank you so much. And I know Ted also attended a meeting where you presented, and he attended on our behalf to gather some information. And so he was on the agenda, but I think the majority of what he got from that meeting is similar to what you shared with with us this evening. Is that correct, Ted? Awesome. And so we just wanted to let people know that part of the invitation for this evening was so that you could share with PIC some of the learning opportunities that are available for parents. And if that we decided at some point that we wanted to reach out to connect and have conversations about what you could offer, that we know that that resource is there and available to us as a team. So thank you so much for coming and sharing the resources. I know that that is a great information for this committee as we continue to move forward. And I know you're also working with other departments in the DDSB to ensure that parents are informed as well. So we appreciate you being here with us this evening.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. You're welcome to stay on, but we also understand if life is calling you in other places.
All right.
Appreciate that.
Our next presentation this evening, we've invited two individuals. So Kyla McKee from Inclusive Student Services and Stacey Lupine from our Early Years and Poverty Strategy Department, who are working on a project together regarding students in the early years, and looking to share this initiative with you as we reach out to parents to potentially be involved as well. So I'm going to pass it over to Kyla and Stacey now. I'll put myself on mute, and ladies, when you'd like me to flip to the next screen, just let me know.
Thanks very much. I'm going to get us started, and then Stacey will jump in as well. But good evening, everyone, and thanks so much for the opportunity to join you tonight to share an opportunity with you. My name is Kyla McKee, and I'm a Special Education Officer with the Durham District School Board. And my partner here, Stacey Lupine, is the Senior Manager of Early Years. And together, we'd like to share this opportunity with you. We're hoping to gather parent and guardian voices for a project that we're working on to support our youngest DDSB learners. If you could go to the next slide, Erin, that'd be great. Thank you. At the heart of this project is the idea or the centering focus on creating the conditions for self-regulation, positive mental health, and well-being in the early years. So that's for our junior and senior kindergartens. And so we're going to just take a couple of moments to give you a general overview of the project itself. And then Stacey's also going to provide some specific details, because what we're looking at is to add some additional participants to our working groups. Next slide, Erin. So the project sort of overview has three components. And as I said, at the heart of it is creating those conditions for the self-regulation, positive mental health, and well-being in our early years. And we're breaking it down into sort of three smaller groups: mattering and belonging, developing a sense of self, and understanding the developmental age of these youngest learners. And so we want to be able to break down those groups into smaller components, and each of them is going to have a working group. And the goal of this group is to develop at least one specific activity for this year's Welcome to Kindergarten events. Every year we host an opportunity for parents and guardians to bring our youngest learners into buildings before they start school. And so we want to be able to take this, this focus of creating these conditions and develop a specific activity targeted at each of those 3 areas. So part of the developing of this activity, though, is needing to make sure that all school teams and partners who put on these events also have a common understanding of these 3 key areas. And so we're going to combine sort of the professional development or the resources that may need to go alongside the activity that they're going to actually develop as part of that working group. Next slide, Erin. And I'm going to hand it over to Stacey.
Thank you, Kyla, and hi, everyone. As Erin introduced me earlier, my name is Stacey Lapine, and it's my pleasure to be here with you this evening. So our first subcommittee that we're looking at is Mattering and Belonging Subcommittee. So we know that when children have a sense of mattering and belonging, it plays a role in how well they do in school. We want our youngest learners to feel confident, happy, comfortable, and at ease with themselves and with others. This subcommittee is going to focus on cultivating authentic, caring relationships and connections to create a sense of belonging and mattering among and between children, adults, and the world around them, with healthy relationships at the core of this work. And you can see within this bubble that there's check marks with some bullets, and these are really the connections that we're thinking of. And in this one, you can see that there's 4 reference points to families and the role that the important role that families play. We know that as parents and caregivers, you are your child's first educator, and your voice is extremely important in all the work that we're going to do. If we can move to the next slide, Erin. Thank you. The next subcommittee is a sense of self. So kindergarten programs support and nurture children's growing sense of self. A sense of self can mean that a child or children are comfortable expressing their thoughts, their feelings, their opinions. This subcommittee is going to focus on kindergarten classroom as an environment where all children are affirmed as individuals and as members of a diverse community of learners. The work that this subcommittee is going to do will foster children's identities so that they are confident in their ability to learn new skills, to develop their strengths, and recognize and appreciate the unique contributions that they make. And our third subcommittee, if we could move, thank you, is Understanding Child Development. So we know that early child development sets the foundation for lifelong learning, behavior, and health. It takes place in the context of families and communities and is shaped by children's day-to-day experiences and their environments. This subcommittee will focus on learning and development in the context of relationships among children, families, educators, and their environment, using play as the vehicle to help children reach their learning goals.
So now what we're looking for. So the committee has, as we've said, 3 different subgroups. And so what we're looking for are the important voices of parents and guardians to participate in these 3 working groups. And so we could have up to 6 in terms of 2 per working group, or 1 in each would be great. But the goal would be to be able to participate in these working groups, offering your important voice as part of the planning to develop those activities. We do know that we're on a bit of a short timeline in terms of the fact that Welcome to Kindergarten events are in the spring of 2021. They do typically happen somewhere between April and May. That may be a little bit different in terms of timing this year with everything else that we're navigating, but at the same time, the deadline will remain short. And so it's really about participating at whatever level the parent or guardian voices would be able to offer this important voice about what would make sense, what would encourage you if you were somebody bringing your youngest learner to school for the first time, but also capturing the important voice that you have around being that child's first opportunity for learning and their number 1 teacher in that capacity. So we're looking to this group to spread the word, to participate yourselves, to be able to offer some suggestions as to who might be willing or wanting to be a part of these working groups. And so anyone who is interested as that voice would be emailing Stacy, and together we're steering the giant committee of the 3 subgroups and just making sure that we have contributions from as many different places. You might have noticed in the slides that there were some lists of people. So just to also let you know that within each of these working groups, there are other members that would include teachers, administrators, educational assistants, ECEs, a number of other people that we feel the voices of all together collectively can help us really guide the efforts in creating these activities for Welcome to Kindergarten. So knowing that this is a new project and a new opportunity, we thought you might have some questions. So we just wanted to provide the chance for you to ask us anything that you might need to know before volunteering to join any of the subgroups or the subcommittees. So we're here to answer any questions, but we certainly can also take an email at any time if the thought occurs to you at a later time. But we do recognize that there is a short timeline, and our need to organize our working groups is prioritized. But we also wanted to make sure we don't miss out on this important voice.
Excellent. So if there are any questions right now, I see Ted has his hand up, so feel free, Ted.
Sorry. I was just curious if we're involving our, because you mentioned community partners, are we involving all our childcare people that are within all our schools to get their voice in this, because they would have access to all these parents that are coming into kindergarten, and they would certainly be a great partner to when you talk about play, learning, all that. So are they going to be involved as well?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question, Ted. We absolutely will be involving all of our early years partners on each of the 3 committees that we've spoken about this evening. And we agree with you that their knowledge and what they will bring to the committees will really help inform what it looks like for our kindergarten classrooms. We rely on our early years partners to help us with the transition to kindergarten. So thank you again for that question. And absolutely, we will have childcare as well as our early years hub partners, as well as some of the communities serving social service agencies that are delivering preschool programs out in the community.
Do we have any other questions? Feel free to unmute and ask your question if you do.
This is Hannah here, Erin. I have a question. So Kyla or Stacy, I was just wondering how you guys are hoping to include families with children with special needs in this area. Maybe you spoke to it, I might have missed it, but yeah, if you could speak to that, that'd be great.
Thanks, Hannah. There'll be a number of different opportunities. This would be one for sure. And I know that Hannah sits on SEAC with us as well. So between 2 opportunities for sure to get that word out. We're also looking at community partners such as Grandview and welcoming their voices. And so being able to continue to spread the word. Again, we are on a short timeline, but there will be a number of different team members from the Inclusive Student Services Department as well as those community connections. So we'll continue to gather voices to ensure that voices of students with special education needs are absolutely part of that process.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you so much. If there's anyone here that's interested, we can certainly pass again on that contact information. Stacy's email was on the previous screen. And then we will also reach out to any SCC chairs to share amongst SCCs as well. So we can be sure that we have parent representatives on each of those teams. So thank you very much for being with us tonight, and we look forward to hearing about the project as it progresses.
Thank you very much for having us. Take care.
Thank you.
In our next presentation, we've invited to be with us this evening members from our affinity networks. So we wanted to give our affinity networks a chance to introduce themselves to our parent group, to give a little idea of what they do within their affinity networks, how they support students and families and educators, so that you are aware of some of the supports that they offer to families and the work that they're doing within our system. So we're going to start this evening. We've invited a member of Densa, the Durham Educators Network for South Asians, here this evening. And Kavita is actually on our parent engagement committee already. So she's here with us regularly. And today she's just going to give us a little bit of information on Densa.
Good evening, and thank you, Erin. So Densa is the Durham Educators Network for South Asians, and I'm here to represent Densa as chair of Densa. Densa was started in May 2018, and we are a group of educators within the Durham District School Board, but we also have a few educators who join us from other school boards. We do partner regularly with our community partners. For example, we just had Tamil Heritage Month, and we partnered with the Tamil Civic Action Group and did a number of activities. Now, one of our main aims at Densa is to create an inclusive, rich, equitable, and culturally responsive learning environment for our students and our school communities. We also hope to build leadership capacity amongst our network members. This year, given that it's an unusual school year, one of our main goals is to work alongside the equity department to provide synchronous learning with a focus on culturally responsive and relevant pedagogy. Now, for those of you who want to know how you would like to connect with Densa, we are very active on social media. We've got Twitter, we frequently tweet out events, things that we're doing with other community partners. We've got Instagram, Facebook. We also have an email address, and all of this information will be found in the newsletter that PIC is putting together for this month. And that's it for me for Densa. So if you'd like to join Densa, we always are looking for allies, come out to our events and follow us on Twitter. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, Kavita. We'd also like to welcome from MEND, we have Imran Saeed, and MEND is our Muslim Educator Network of Durham.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to be here tonight. My co-chair, Shahana Arain, was unable to attend, but I can give a brief synopsis of the work we do. The genesis of MEND really came about formally after the mosque shooting in Quebec, and it was one of those things where when you hear about tragic events like that, it does, for me as an educator now 20 years into my career, it compelled me to, kind of reach out to our director at the time and say, how can we start supporting our system? Because there are a great deal of, I would just say misunderstandings about the Muslim community out there, and media stereotypes are perpetuated regularly. So the counterbalance for us is, as educators, similar to Densa, we are a network throughout the employee groups available at the DDSB. We work together, and it's actually an amazing group who come together to run various events such as Islamic Heritage Month in October. Typically, our events tend to be oversubscribed. So we have there's a growing population throughout Durham. And one of our key, I would say goals is just really striving to support growing and diverse Muslim populations in Durham by building positive relationships and benefit of student achievement and well-being. So it's always centered in the work we do, and it complements, what I would consider strategic board priorities, because these are things that move our students forward, and we want to help our community navigate how they engage with the Durham District School Board. Often what we're seeing now is there's been a real shift. Families are accessing us for different things, just how to navigate the system. What do I do if there can be ESL issues, to what do I do if my child gets in trouble with a principal? So we get a litany of questions around a variety of issues, and we do our best to connect and coordinate parents, back to the right channels, often acting as a bridge between schools when there's misunderstandings. Like one of our projects right now is we're trying to support a school out in Whitby where there's been a few music exemptions requested, and helping the community understand, it may not be about trying to exempt your child from music, but how do you re-engage and have your voice heard around the concerns you may have around, different parts of the curriculum. So there's a lot of little things that we're doing and a lot of big events. Some of our big events that we typically do in person, but this year will be done virtually, is our annual iftar during Ramadan. That event typically each year, for the last 2 years that we've done it, it gets oversubscribed. We've had well between 800 to 1,000 people that show up, and we have to cut it short because the capacity just gets too large. But what it shows to us is there is a community desire to be heard, to be engaged with, and to really show a different side, that Muslims aren't a monolith, that there is a great deal of diversity amongst them. There's a ton of intersectionality when you have Black Muslims, the variety of Muslim groups that exist, and having our staff, our students, our parents and families that engage with us, and the allies understand that there's such great diversity in it that you can't treat it as just one unique monolith. And really that's the piece that we are trying to just create better streams of education for everybody. We've done a lot of professional development, both with our staff. We do professional development with our families. There have been different events. And again, to see our upcoming events, we've got our wearemen.ca website. And we do the same thing as a lot of our affinity networks. We will put it on Twitter. We share it through the board website. It'll be on their splash page for any upcoming events. And right now we're working on a project to start some internal mentorship in terms of growing leaders within our board and helping teachers navigate the different pieces that they need to, and growing, again, just growing our employee groups to be able to better interact with one another.
Thank you so much, Imran. And I love that you really highlighted the role you play in being partners with parents as they reach out and access that support. And really that's the amazing role that many of our affinity networks fill. So thank you for sharing. And if there's questions, once all of our affinity networks have shared, we'll also open it up for questions in case any parents have things they'd like to ask. So I'm going to pass it over now to Keen, which is our Kina Now, our Indigenous Employee Network. I do have the slides for both of you if you'd like me to share. So I'd like to pass it over to Jennifer Scott and Karen Mullen, who will tell us a little bit about the Indigenous Employee Network.
Thank you, Erin. I just wanted to introduce ourselves. First of all, Saguli Sagwek. My name is Jennifer Scott. I am part of Anyo Dayatka, a United Nation of the Thames, just outside of London. We don't have a chair, but we are an executive group and a very small number of employees who have come together, I don't know, I would say about 10 years ago, possibly, just to find other employees in our network. Karen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, if you can go to the first slide, Erin. I think we're on the last
one. Yes, if you guys can guide me, make sure I'm going the right way.
Yeah, back further.
Almost there, I think.
Yeah,
one more.
Get closer. Two more, I think. Bonjour, Karen Nadijnikas. Kendall Ndonjaba. I am Métis from the Red River Settlement of Manitoba. And I'm a citizen of the Métis Nation of Ontario, as well as a citizen of Canada. I am a teacher at DDSB and a grandmother. So being a parent is obviously super important. I live in a multi-generational home, so I'm doing it again, basically. Jennifer and I are part of the executive on the Kina Now Indigenous Employee Network. Kina Now means all of us. And Jen?
Yeah, coming together, and it's actually from Francis, our founder. It's Cree language. Our Kina Now Indigenous Employee Network, we are working together to make DDSB a better place for Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people. We are nations with distinct identities, cultures, and histories, and inherent rights. What do we do as an employee group? We have decided to come together to not only create a voice for the various nations in our community, as well as to connect with our community partners and as well as families. So Karen and I are working with the Indigenous Education Department, Michelle Evans, Jennifer Henderson, as well as Erin Elmhurst, to just try to find each other. Coming from a community where I grew up in Brantford, Ontario, I saw many more Indigenous people than I do in Oshawa. So to be honest, it was nice to see myself amongst my staff when I first met them. And I still don't see my staff. So we're continuing, I'm continually, everywhere I go in the DDSB, I'm looking for people who may quietly identify but are afraid to come out. And so we're connecting with communities, we're connecting with parents. I'm finding out as a virtual CERT with the DDSB at home that many families are virtual in our community, and connecting with Caria, our South Oshawa and Ajax community Indigenous group that supports our families. What do we do at the bottom? We run Indigenous events, socials, and workshops. So we are trying to just bring community and DDSB employees together once a month, and just putting on events for our employees and staff, as well as at the end of the year, we always come up with a student day. This is our mission statement that we created a couple of years ago when Mohammed brought all the affinity networks together. And we're just continuing to support families. I don't know if you want to go to the next slide, Erin, and we can talk about our student day. Karen, do you want to go ahead?
Absolutely. So in our student day, it's an all-day event, and all students from approximately grade 4 up to grade 12 are welcome to come, just because they kind of have the run of the building, so they can't be a lot younger than that. But we have First Nations, Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, elders or teachers that come and teach different cultural activities, as well as Métis. And we've had somebody come that is Inuit, and also do some teaching there as well. And we've had great responses, and the students seem to really like it. And we're hoping in the spring to run an event for parents who are Indigenous. And we're also hoping to, even with COVID, to have our Indigenous Student Day, and but hold it virtually. Yeah.
Well, these are just a few pictures of the student days that we've done in the past. We've had a lot. As you can see, that is a great number of students in the crowd, along with their educators coming all over the Durham region, which just warms my heart and really makes me as a parent as well kind of well up and tear up to see how many students can be proud of truly who they are, because it's a scary thing as an Indigenous person to come out and tell other people who you are. So in that, our goal as a network is to really be promoting parent involvement, and we would like to create a parent involvement committee or an Indigenous parent group. We do have a small group, Karen, help me out with the wording, that one of our colleagues runs in consultation with Scugog First Nation, and as well as the Indigenous Network or Education Network. But we'd like to grow it, and we want to reach out to families. We want to reach out to Caria and our social communities, and just build more of a voice for Indigenous students, their families, and as well as us, our colleagues and staff.
Yeah, so it's just it's very different maybe than some of the other affinity groups, in the sense that with colonialism and Indigenous populations being subjected to being forced into residential schools, there's a lot of distrust from our Indigenous parents and families, and we can see those effects across the school board, the schools. And so we're trying to educate staff, we're trying to educate ourselves, and then hopefully to educate those students and parents so that they have trust once again with an education system that would steal their children or make them want to hide, like my grandmother would hide that she was Métis because of the risk of possibly having your children taken away. So to build that trust again, and it is taking us a long time to build that within just our school board, to have teachers who are willing to self-identify. So we're hoping to build some capacity there with parents. That would be fantastic. Thanks.
Great. Thank you both so much for sharing. We have one additional employee network or affinity network that was unable to be with us this evening, and that would be DBEN, our Durham Black Educators Network. So they shared some information with me and asked me just to kind of share on their behalf. So DBEN actually began in 2005. And it is the Durham Black Educators Network, and it's still working to fulfill their mandate of optimizing educational experiences for students, staff, parents, and community contacts of the Black diaspora in the Durham region. DBEN offers things such as they have developed a Black Studies course, which runs in many of our schools across Durham. They've created a document called Contributions to Afrocentric Perspectives. It's a K-8 curriculum document. They oversee And Still We Rise. It's an ambassador leadership program and conferences for students, as well as that's for secondary as well as for elementary. They actively support professional learning throughout the system. They have student awards for Black students within the system, and they also have recently started a parent advisory committee as well, advising and supporting Black parents within our district. So DBEN has a website that we can visit, email address, and they also have an Instagram and Twitter page as well, if that's an affinity network you'd like to follow or get more information on. We can also send the information for any of our affinity networks out to parents if they're looking to connect. We thought at this time that we would give you an opportunity to ask questions. If you have any questions from any of our representatives here today about the work they do supporting families and students in our system. And seeing none, I'll thank you all for being here and just let this group know that in our upcoming parent engagement newsletter, there'll also be some information on our affinity networks with contact information that parents can also access. So thank you all for being here this evening and for sharing. We appreciate that very much. Next up, we have one more presentation this evening. We're going to welcome Fatima Muta, who is our partnership coordinator with the Durham District School Board. And she's been working with us to create some guidelines for SCCs and for parent groups for when you're engaging with community partners, to really ensure that those partners that we engage with also honor the human rights and equity principles of the Durham District School Board. So Fatima's here and she's going to share a bit of the work that she has been working on. And I believe you're going to share your own screen this evening, correct?
All yes, right. That's correct. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here tonight. I'm just going to share my screen in 1 second. Can everyone see that?
We can see it, Fatima. You're just not in present mode, so we can just see the slides along the side as well. You just may want to go to present mode. There you go. Perfect.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. As Erin mentioned, my name is Fatima Mutaj, and I am the Partnership Development Coordinator at the DDSB. To start off, I just wanted to give a bit of an overview about some of the work that we do. So the Durham District School Board is committed to promoting effective community-based partnerships. Our partnerships foster student engagement, well-being, and achievement through the provision of programs and services that enhance learning opportunities for all students. So this could include any in-school programming. It could include any after-school programming in our youth hub spaces. And our partnerships are also with some of our early years community partners as well. The DDSB supports, encourages, and facilitates the development of partnerships between the board or our schools and the larger community. The primary focus of the partnerships are to support educational programming, honor the authentic voice of our community, and enhance the quality and relevance of learning for our students. So this again includes any culturally responsive partnerships that I heard some of our affinity groups mention, and any of the partnerships that would foster a feeling of welcoming for students students of all abilities, students that identify our diverse student population, sorry. So a report was presented to Admin Council some weeks ago, and our goal is to really prioritize equity and human rights moving forward with our partnerships. So in order to do that, we've realized that it is very imperative that we ensure that the community groups and associations that we choose to engage in partnerships with reflect the DDSB's core values, strategic priorities, and have a commitment to human rights and equity. So in order to do that, we as a group came together and assembled guiding questions for the leaders and principals to follow when engaging in conversations with existing or potential community partners. So the first one would be, what is the purpose and scope of the partnership? What would they like to achieve and what are their expected outcomes? Is the partner looking to access school space, deliver a program, or collaborate with us on an event or project? And that can also include any donations and sponsorships for special projects. And the next question would be, in what ways will this partnership support educational programming, honor the authentic voice of our community, and enhance the quality and relevance of learning for our students? The partnerships that we engage with as well should align with our strategic priorities. And that is another very important question that we ask. What strategic priority are the partners aligning with? So the priorities being success, well-being, leadership, equity, engagement, and innovation. The partners also should be able to meet all of the standard board provisions and Ministry of Education provisions as it relates to partnerships. So that would include informed consent, criminal reference checks to ensure that the safety of our students are also being considered, appropriate insurance coverage, compliance with the Safe Schools Act, conflict of interest, confidentiality, equity, human rights, and again, alignment with any relevant policies, including our positive school climate, codes of conduct, and DDSB's commitment to positive, safe, inclusive, accessible, and equitable learning and working environments. Some of the specific equity and human rights questions that we're asking are whether the partnership is in compliance with the DDSB's equity and inclusive education regulations and related policies. So some of the questions that we've provided the school leaders and educators to use as a guide include the following. Does the proposed partner's organizational mandate, objectives, and activities align with the DDSB's values and commitments to equity? Do they promote and protect human rights and prevent discrimination? Does the partner actively demonstrate its commitment to support positive, safe, respectful, inclusive, accessible, equitable learning and working environments? Does the partner demonstrate their support for human rights, equity, anti-discrimination, anti-racism, anti-ableism, anti-homophobia, anti-transphobia, anti-Islamophobia, and to improve experiences and outcomes for communities that are affected by historical and ongoing discrimination and marginalization? Are there historical or ongoing concerns about the partner's commitments or practices related to equity and human rights? And I'd like to highlight this one because if something is brought up about a past practice that any of the partners have had, we would have no problem at all discontinuing our relationship with them as well if they are hinging on any of these equity and human rights considerations. And lastly, has the school and or the DDSB's diverse communities been consulted on the potential partnership? And this goes back hand in hand with this committee, our affinity groups, and any of the other community focus groups that we have within the DDSB as well. So in next steps, what we have done is we've sent out a system-wide email to help guide and to help guide the system leaders and educators when engaging in conversations with partners. And our focus really is to prioritize our equity and human rights considerations because we realize that it's very important to stay committed and really take concrete actions that reflect that reflect the welcoming, respectful, and inclusive environment that we want to continue to provide at the DDSB. And in order to ensure that the collaboration between the schools and community councils and community partners align with the DDSB's core values, our department has developed a centralized committee that would work with other departments across the board to develop a procedure. It would be a revised procedure. There is already an existing one with guidelines to be shared and to be fully implemented in the 2021-2022 school year. So currently, the committee that has been assembled has representation from a number of departments: partnership development, human rights and legal, equity and inclusive education, operations, community use of schools, and positive school climate is also part of the committee. And together we will be creating a community partnership development guideline and procedure. And then our commitment to this group, as well as the other groups that are a part of the DDSB, is that we will be sharing the revised policy and procedure system-wide. If you do have any questions, I would be happy to answer them. And should any questions come up in the future, you can contact me directly at fatima.mutaj@ddsb.ca with any partnership-related questions that you may have.
Thank you, Fatima. And as we begin to adjust our guidelines for engaging with community partners at schools by thinking about those in the community that we work alongside in our schools, we thought that was important to also bring to parents, as many of you sit on SCCs and are actively involved in school communities. So it's important that you're also aware of some of those guidelines and considerations that we're looking at, and your voice is really important in that as well. So if there's any questions for Fatima right now, please feel free to unmute and ask them. We don't need hands, there's just a small group of us. Excellent, well, thank you, Fatima. I think you answered all the questions, so we're good. Thanks for coming this evening.
Thank you for having me.
At this time, we do have a scheduled break, and there has been some requests that perhaps we, continue on. And that a break sometimes is lovely, but at the same time, we can move forward and perhaps end those 5 minutes earlier if we take breaks when we need them and keep on going. So I just wanted to propose that first of all and see how people feel about that. Is there anyone that would be opposed to us continuing and would rather have a 5-minute break?
I'm okay.
Awesome. Thank you. And I think we'll continue. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen because right now we also, of course, want that opportunity to hear from our community, from our committees, and to hear about all the outstanding committee work that is taking place as PIC members, as all of you take on other committees as well and continue to grow the work throughout the district. So we'll go through those committees and get a little update as to how things are looking, starting with our communications committee.
Hi, everybody. It's Kim Brathwaite. Hope everybody's well. As you know, we did publish our first newsletter for the year in December. So I want to thank the committee members who participated and helped us with that. We're really happy with it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as well. We met as well and we planned different content for the next one, which we'll be publishing in March. And as a few people have mentioned, we are going to be doing a feature story about all of the affinity education networks. Just so, I know they had a chance to speak to you this evening, but I think it'll be good for you to have all of their information on your computer, in your inbox, or hard copy, however you receive the newsletter, or on the website. In addition to that, we will be talking about a few other pieces, maybe some fun things to do with your children during March break, virtually, of course. And then also, if we don't promote the BQAMI, just do a recap of the BQAMI event that's coming up, then it will be in the next newsletter before the end of the year. So there's a bunch of great things happening, and I love to share what's happening within the committee and within the board. And I also wanted to let anybody know if you have any suggestions or comments definitely just give me a call, or maybe an email is better, an email, or you can reach out to Manon or Aaron and they will forward the information on to me. So I think that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thanks.
Excellent. Any questions for Kim, or potentially any, we have our March newsletter pretty much set, ready to go. We're working on that. And if there were any other topics that you'd like to see us cover, that's always feedback we could take at this time too. So if there's any questions you might have for Kim, or any suggestions for upcoming newsletters, please feel free to unmute and share.
Aaron, it's Ted. I'm not sure this is the right place, but in reference to communication, some of the communication that comes out from the board and then via usually our principals tends to be a little confusing. And I was just wondering if this would be the place to address that, or was that be a separate conversation at all?
I think it's valid at this point, Ted, absolutely, because we can take that feedback back. So happy to hear those challenges and concerns now, most definitely.
Okay, because my poor principal, because I keep sending her a note and say, did you actually send this out? And usually it comes from the board. And one of it related, and I don't know if we do elementary versions versus secondary versions, because sometimes information comes out, at least from my thoughts as a secondary school parent, the wearing of masks for dropping off my kids. I thought, oh, do I have to now, if I drive my daughter to school, do I have to wear a mask while I'm in the car driving into the school property? So, and then I kind of dawned that that's more of an elementary thing. And then there was another one that came out prior to, the new rules coming out of wearing masks all the time, the grades 1 to 3, which is always great information to hear. And then, and relates to outside. And I know we've talked about, at least in the high schools, the kids not congregating together as they walk to school. But, the example they used was like recess. So just a thought going forward that when these things come out blasting to all the parents that, maybe some, I don't want to say thought, but, is it going to a high school voice or is it going to an elementary voice? Because it could, and I know I'm doubling communications work on this, but it may, just if it's going to secondary, then the information relevant for secondary, and I don't know if anyone else has had that thought about it. It was just something that I picked up on. I was just wondering if that was something we can move forward with or ask about.
So Ted, thanks so much for your comments. I will let the team know. We do, sometimes we're putting out these communications fast and furiously, unfortunately, but it is a good point in terms of thinking about secondary language, what obviously they don't have recess and then the different grade levels. So sometimes we do send out communications that are separate, and sometimes it is a group communications piece. So I can definitely make sure I mention that, and we can work on that. So thank you for that.
Okay.
Any others for Kim? Excellent, thank you. Thanks, Kim. An update from our Welcome to DDSB committee.
Hello again, it's Kavita again. So welcome to DDSB committee. We met in early January this year, and our committee included parents, educators, teachers, administrators, and Carolyn, who's also on this committee, is part of the Welcome to DDSB committee. But I'm looking for more parents to be part of the committee, because the goal of the Welcome to DDSB committee is to create resources for parents who are new to the Durham District School Board, or parents who are going through the DDSB as first-time parents. So I would really like to have more parent voice, because we're creating these resources for parents. So if any other members on PIC or any other parents would like to be part of this committee, please feel free to reach out to me, and I will let you know of our next meeting date. We're meeting again in March, but at this time, what we've done is we have divided our resources, or the creation of resources, to align it with the DDSB strategic priorities. So each and every one of our members, we've taken one of the priorities and we're working on that to create resources for parents. Now, once we put together a draft of all these resources, I will be sharing it with the PIC committee to get your feedback. And again, hear your voice as to what should be included, if we're missing any pieces, and so on. So if you would like to be part of this committee, it's still not too late. Please reach out to me and I will invite you to our next meeting. We are meeting again in early March. So that's where we stand with the Welcome to DDSB committee. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, Erin.
Thank you, Kavita. An update on programs. I think it was Sarah, but she may have had to leave. Was there any other member of the program committee that wanted to share where we are with programs?
Erin, I guess I could. We
Sure.
did get an email from Mano today talking about that there'll be a meeting. And I
think it's tomorrow, Ted. I think it's tomorrow.
Yeah. To talk about the applications that have been received so far. So it's looking good. That seems applications from the north throughout all the things. There's some groups like Pickering and Ajax putting a proposal together. So it looks like it's working out good.
Excellent, thank you. I'm excited to look through all of those. We have a pretty good turnout actually for our planning night as well. I think there was about 66 people who attended to plan and begin to look at programs in municipalities. So excited to look at those projects to see what we have. There's also, we gave 2 dates. So one of the due dates has recently passed and there's a second due date as well to give schools opportunities to apply if they miss the first due date. So there'll be another set for us to review as well. And we'll come back to you and share those successful programs as we move forward. Our Parents as Partners event. I'm not sure who's speaking to that one, but I'm sure there's somebody here. Perhaps not this evening. We can give you an update on that one as it comes. I know they're still planning the Parents as Partners event. I believe the date for that is in April. There's Kim. Awesome. Thank you, Kim.
Yeah, I'm not on the committee, but I was working on the communications pieces for it. So since Frank isn't here, just to let you guys know, so far, the registration has been great for the event. We have about, I think, over 300. I think we were talking about that in our meeting today.
I think they're actually 2 different events, Kim. Parents as Partners event is the one that was once a conference, and then Parent Engagement Series is this one. But that's okay.
I skipped ahead. I'm so sorry.
Because Parent Engagement Series is on the list. So why don't we just go right into that one?
But if anybody from that committee is here, I would, I don't want to step on anybody's toes. So if anybody's from that committee is here, definitely go ahead.
I don't see Frank, actually. I don't think he made it this evening, so feel free. Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. Okay, so parent engagement. Sorry about that. So BQAMI is coming, and based on our meeting that we had with the communications team earlier today, there's over 300 people who have registered for the event. So we're really excited about it. I think it's going to be a success. And yeah, we're really looking forward to that. And we'll definitely do either a recap on the event in the newsletter for this month, for March, or for the one before the end of the year, but we're definitely going to feature it. So excited about this one for sure. And I believe there's going to be some great breakout sessions as well that the team has planned out. So should be nice. That's it.
Thank you. And not to worry, there's so many events that we host that I'm just going to stop sharing for a second. There's so many events that we host, parent engagement, parents as partners. It's hard to know which is which. So not to worry, we're just lucky we have so many being offered. We also thought that because some of you may or may not have had a chance to register, I'm going to actually put the registration link right in the chat right now. So while we're continuing with our meeting for the next few minutes, if you wanted to register for the event, it's there, it's available. And you could have access to that right now as well. We also, there's amazing breakouts, and we have students and staff working with BQAMI to lead those breakouts. So she's providing a training session for the leaders. And also we have door prizes, so lots of books and things that we will be able to share with people who attend, doing some draws to send out to families after. So that should be an outstanding event as well, and we hope you'll all be able to join us. Do we have any questions? Those are pretty much our community updates. So I thought I'd see if there were any questions, anything you would like to bring forward from your experiences as parents, other things you'd like to have an opportunity just to chat about now before we look at some of our upcoming events. If you had any questions for us, we can give you a minute for that.
Erin, are we going to talk about fundraising, or was that?
It was more so about the guidelines for partnerships, which would impact fundraising. Yeah.
Okay.
Did you have fundraising questions though, Ted?
A couple of things that came up at the last SAC that I went to, and because I sit on I'm still sitting on an elementary one as a community rep, and one of the things they're struggling with fundraising is just, saturation, kids not being in school, they really can't do chocolates or stuff like that. So I asked them, have they ever thought about reaching out to alumni? So this is like, I guess in my case, of now graduated from this public school, being in high school where there is no fundraising. Would there be an opportunity for the elementary schools to reach out to their former students and or parents and see if they'd be interested in participating or made aware of, or at least doing that? So that was one question. I wasn't sure if they would. And I know they talked about that once the student leaves the system and goes from their school to the next school, they drop out of the system. They don't have access to the parents' emails anymore. And I just thought whether that may be something that we could float towards, the board or to exec councils, whatever, just to say, just to help out, because there's still probably parents that wouldn't mind, helping out wherever they could. And
it's definitely something to consider. And what a couple schools have done, and this doesn't speak directly to alumni, so that's something we'll have to continue to think about. But some schools have, because chocolate sales, those types of things, they've also given parents an option, if they choose to do a donation rather than the selling of chocolates to the school, which is an option for some. Which I think would work similarly for alumni. It would just be around communication and those types of pieces. So definitely something we could explore.
Okay. No, it was just a thought, because I know sometimes they do, through the local florist or stuff like that. And I think, wow, I couldn't get my things this year, or, poinsettias, that type of thing. So and high schools don't do that. And to get the parents is challenging in the high schools to do that, because we don't raise money. So that was just more of a thought to help out our elementary panel at all. No, that was it.
Great, thank you. Any others? Excellent. Well, not having our break may have us finishing a little bit early, but I wanted to share with you, if we can see that now, some of our upcoming events. So we talked about the parent engagement series on February 24th. And again, the Parents as Partners, we didn't have the rep here, but that's April or May. We're just finalizing that date. So I'll be able to give you an update in the near future. And we also have our next PIC meeting coming up on April 13th at the same time. If there are pieces of information you'd like us to bring forward, if there's questions you might have ahead of time, please feel free to let me know, so we can also come prepared with presentations that might be geared towards some things you're working on in your schools, some things we might want to consider, so we can have that information ready for you. And if there aren't any questions, I think that is it for this evening.
Erin, just one quick question, and I'm probably going to throw this out of left field for you. I know there's talk about March break being held off, and I know you don't have the answer to this, but I'm missing especially in the high school, where our kids miss time, because they're saying to use this time to catch up, and I'm struggling to understand exactly where that is. If that's, I can understand some other the health aspects of it, but when it comes to, like my daughter's been on in front of her computer since January the 4th, every day, morning and afternoon. So I'm at a loss to see where the missed time is, or is that something we can look into, or
I can give you a little sliver of context. We haven't really received a messaging about March break, so I don't have a concrete answer. But what I do know is that we were extremely fortunate in the DDSB to start on time. And so when we look at the number of instructional days that a board has to have, all those pieces, because we started on time, we haven't missed time. But there are other boards across Toronto that didn't start on time and had a delayed start because it needed to work on some additional organizational items. So I think that's where some of that communication might be coming from. We were just fortunate enough that we were able to have everybody in right at the beginning.
Okay, that does make sense. Yep.
Yeah. Erin, I also have another question. The same kind of lines now that Ted mentioned. This is about the e-learning experiences the kids are having. And this is personally affecting me and my child just because, I have seen her kind of struggling with this e-learning course that she's just getting this quadmester. And I'm just wondering how this decision was taken. And it seems to me that it's a little bit concerning for the children not to have a teacher present, right? Like they have this asynchronous learning, whatever experience that is DL2. She's very frustrated, and I'm honest with you, and of course she's my child and I might be a little biased here, but she's very, very organized, and she seems to be kind of like going in every single direction, trying to get, the course on the wraps, and she's struggling with it. And I'm struggling as a parent because I don't know exactly how to guide her. So if I'm struggling, I'm sure a lot of parents out there are on the same way. So I'm just wondering, is this gonna be like always like this? Is this gonna be like just for a little bit? Is the teacher supposed to be more guidance even though there is not an actual class? Things like that. She's mentioning the fact that how Google Meets is so much better than this DL2 because it's more like, easy for following the assignments, the instructions, how she can get the things in the Word and how to submit it. So, I guess I'm trying to get a feel of if anybody else have heard or is experiencing the same thing with your children or your friends' children or whatever the case.
I might ask, and I don't want to put you on the spot, Kavita, but I want to make sure I'm really understanding because there's two pieces. So there's our quadmester, and is your child, just for clarity, in virtual learning in the DDSB at home, I guess is my first question.
Yes.
In DDSB at home.
DDSB at home, yes.
Okay. And so there's two things, right? There's the DDSB at home programming, and then there's the e-learning courses that are offered through an e-learning consortium that aren't necessarily DDSB run courses. And sometimes there's a DDSB instructor, sometimes there's not. So both of those two ways of delivery look different for students. So Kavita, maybe I see you nodding, so I'm just going to pass it to you if you're okay, because I do have some secondary background, but I don't live it like Kavita does.
Yep. So Adriana, from my understanding, you are referencing the e-learning course that your daughter is taking, right?
Yeah,
because
she registered in the quadmester to some course that is e-learning, and is not there is not a teacher present. They just get assignments through the DL2.
D2L, yes. So e-learning consortium, they do use the D2L platform, where you're right, it is asynchronous learning, and students are required to log in, at certain times. They're required to put in a certain number of hours. Teachers do put in their, assignments online, and all of that is logged on a daily basis. So that is not the same as our virtual learning environment. So when we have virtual learning in the afternoon, that is synchronous live streaming of lessons. And when we do that synchronous live streaming of lessons, it's a Google Meet, the teacher is front of the students, ask questions. So that's where, we are at with our hybrid learning model. So this year, we've adopted a hybrid learning model for those of us who are in the actual school building, the bricks and mortar building, where we do the in-person in the morning from 10 to 12:30. And then when kids go home, they have the synchronous live learning. But the e-learning it's been there previously too. So even prior to COVID, prior to our hybrid learning model, we did have e-learning, and e-learning are mostly elective courses. So our core courses we don't offer through e-learning. So does that answer some of your questions, or you have a?
Yeah, I guess some it is. It's just, I guess, the frustration that she's experiencing because of not being able to kind of like organize herself that she is used to, right? She gets a little stressed about being able to put herself into the role of, okay, these are the assignments, I have to complete this, I have to do this. And somehow as a parent, I also feel like, okay, I don't really have a teacher to go to because there is not a teacher. Like the teacher just puts things in there and that's it, right? Like it's so disconnected, so to speak. Like how do we keep the children engaged? And that's what I'm trying to figure it out, trying to help her understanding, the situation to me, and I was honest, I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't know this was before COVID. I thought this was because of COVID. So when she got assigned that course, I wasn't aware that even existed. I thought, everything through Google Meets or whatever. And she does have one class right now through Google Meets, and all her classes she's been at home the whole time since COVID started, and all her classes up to now had been like this. And yeah, you're right, this is an elective one. It's just how can I manage that frustration of her not being able to get there, because it's so irritating for her not to be able to grasp what she has to do and get it over with, kind of thing.
So here's my suggestion. So we've had students who've taken these e-learning courses in the past. She can connect with her teacher, because on the D2L platform, there is an avenue for her to be able to directly connect with the teacher. So she doesn't have to post it to the entire class, because there's one stream that posts to the entire class, and one that you can directly connect with the teacher. So let her connect with the teacher and ask for those extra supports, extra help, and the teacher will connect back. So it's not just a person who posts stuff, but that teacher does communicate. From our experience with high school, the teacher will communicate. So I encourage you to tell her to do that. Okay?
Will do. Thank you, Kavita. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Excellent. Any other questions at this time? Well, we greatly appreciate you all being here. We greatly appreciate the work you're doing in all of our subcommittees and to support parent engagement in the DDSB. Val, did you want to say anything before we leave this evening?
Just a thank you again to everyone for coming and supporting us tonight. And thank you to all our speakers. That was excellent.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a fantastic evening. Take care.
All right, you too. Thank you.